Good afternoon. I'm Shashi Tharoor and I'm delighted to be able to address the Indian Education Congress organized by Franchise India, even though I'm not doing so in person, but through the form of this video message. I am delighted, as I said, but at the same time I'm sorry that circumstances didn't permit me to be with you in person, because I believe that the issues of education for all are amongst the most important challenges facing our nation. Let me tell you why. We are one of the youngest countries in the world. We have something like 560 million people under the age of 25. If you just take the key educational years of 10 to 19, we have 225 million Indians of that age. This could mean that in the next 3-4 decades, 30-40 years, we would have a youthful, growing, dynamic population for the world, which could be a workforce, a work engine for the world, but only if we educate them and train them to do that. If we succeed, if we can educate those with the talent to take on the white-collar job opportunities of the 21st century, and if those who can't, we can give them vocational training so they learn trades that are also vital for the future economy of India and of the world. If we do that, then frankly, India's economic transformation will be little short of dramatic. But if we fail, if we don't get our educational priorities right, I'm sorry to say that the alternative that faces us is what we have seen with incidents in 165 of our 629 districts. That is Maoist violence, frustrated, unemployed young men with no stake in the system, with no hope in the economy, picking up the gun as an alternative to finding a job. Now that is the danger we need to avert. And to my mind, therefore, education is not just about the social and economic future of India, it is no less than a national security challenge. Now, what are we doing about it? Well, it's been customary to speak for a long time about the 2 E's of Indian education: expansion and equity. Expansion was vital. When we got independence, we had a literacy rate of 17%. We had barely 30 universities in the country, a handful of colleges. This was not a country with much of an educational backbone or infrastructure. We have gone from that 17% to 74%. We've gone from 30 colleges to over 30 universities to over 600, close to 700 universities. We've got 33,000 colleges around the country. And we are enrolling children in our school system with the Right to Education Act, getting them in early and getting them in very, very good numbers. So that the old story that India had more children out of school than the rest of the world is fortunately no longer true. We think there are about 3 million Indian children who still haven't been caught by our Right to Education net, but each month literally the numbers are going down. So that's what we're doing right. The second E is equity, and that means giving opportunities to those who are frankly left out of the system, either because they live in remote places or because of accidents of birth, of religion, of caste, of gender. Women have always had a challenge in getting the kind of opportunities they deserve in our educational system. Even when that British 17% I talked about, women only had 8% literacy. So that in fact only 8% of Indian women could read and write in 1947. And today when I speak of 74%, it's about 82% for men and only about 65% for women. So there is still a gender gap, and that too has to be overcome through active policies to promote equity. And we've done that, and we're proud of the programs that we've got into the country to get children from all backgrounds into school and college and keep them there and give them support and encouragement and financial incentives and so on to ensure that they will actually remain in the educational system. In the process, have we neglected the third E? And that is the E of excellence. I would argue that probably we have. There are some outstanding Indian institutions. I'm a product of St. Stephen's College. IITs, IIMs, many other places have worldwide reputations. But it's also true that for the most part, these are islands of excellence floating on a sea of mediocrity. How do we manage to overcome that? How do we manage to improve excellence across the board? Raise standards of teachers, raise standards of curricula, raise standards of students. We're spending a lot of money. Under UPA rule, we've gone from 3% of our GDP being spent on education to 4.8% today of a much larger GDP. But it's also true that outlays have to be matched by outcomes. Are the learning outcomes that we're seeing with our children, are they what we want entirely? I would say that both at school and at college levels, there is tremendous room for improvement. That may be where you all come in, because in my mind there is a fourth E, and that is the E of employability. We want to produce an educational system that produces graduates that people actually want to employ, want to hire. And of course, graduates who can take advantage of the opportunities and challenges that the 21st century offers. We are certainly doing this right across the government system, the public university system, the central universities, but the private sector has a major contribution it can make. Already, many private sector players have entered the education space, both at school levels and at higher educational levels. What I'd like to see is more quality and excellence being injected into the system by all of you, and in particular with an eye on employability. Many of you who are coming from backgrounds of running industries, running businesses, you know what you're looking for in the young people you want to hire. Make sure that the educational institutions you're creating or supporting produce people who have those skills. I've spoken to too many employers who tell me they're not happy with the quality of the graduates they get. I know too many companies who have to do remedial training, not just on-the-job training, which every big company does, but remedial education to actually put kids through a sort of classroom environment after they're hired in order to make up for the deficiencies of what they have not learned or failed to learn in their college education. That shouldn't be happening. We ought to ensure that we actually have in the colleges and universities the right mix of subjects, up-to-date curricula, where relevant hands-on practical experience, internships, more penetration, interpenetration between academia and the industry and business world, so that we can actually produce an educational system that ensures all four E's: expansion, equity, excellence, and employability. If we can do that, we will need to do it in partnership with the private sector, and we in the government have no hang-ups about that. We have announced, for example, PPP mode model schools across the country, in educationally backward districts in particular. We have announced a bill which has sadly not yet passed our dysfunctional parliament, but a bill that will create universities for innovation and research, which can be in the private sector, in the public sector, or in the joint PPP space. So we are very much open to seeing collaboration. What we'd like you to do is to rise to the challenge. Many of you with big businesses and big industries now have a mandated CSR responsibility to spend 2% of your profits on social causes. What better social cause can there be than education? Try and put those resources in, put in your expertise, target these universities with your understanding of what society, the economy and industry need, and I'm convinced that you can walk hand in hand with the government to produce the kinds of results that India needs if we are to seize the 21st century and make it our own. Thank you for listening to these words of encouragement. I wish you a very constructive conference and effective deliberations. Namaskar. Jai Hind.